And we're back. I'm Vanessa Lagoa, and you're watching Life Rewritten on Now Media Television. Welcome back to Life Rewritten. I'm your host, Vanessa Lagoa. If you're loving what you're watching, don't forget to download our app at www.nowmedia.tv. You can watch us 24/7, live in Spanish and English. We are back with Christopher Nudo, and Chris is talking to us about family planning for, life's challenges when we're gone, maybe even times of medical struggles that families are facing. And Chris is helping us navigate this challenging time that that's inevitable in families. Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you.
So we were talking a little bit about, the planning ahead for these inevitable things that happen in life. Can you talk to us a little bit about why do you think people and families are so angry and hostile when
Mm,
a loved one passes?
right, right. Oh, so common. So it really comes down to raw emotion, right? First of all, let's just, elephant in the room. Brothers and sisters don't necessarily always get along. Couple brothers don't get along, couple sisters, mix them up, it's just it's reality, right? We grow up together. We might be competitive with one another. We might not like anything we do. Like your sister might play the oboe, which of course I have nothing against. But if you're a football player, you're not understanding your sister, or it could be flipped, right? Your sister could be playing flag football and you play the oboe. But regardless, is you don't identify with one another. Now, children, consciously or unconsciously, compete for their parents' attention. And we all have our favorites. Like mom will let us get away with this, dad will let us get away with that, and um, so this is what we call family dynamics. And so now, when mom dies or dad dies or both are gone, um, all of life's dynamic comes to an immediate halt. And that creates an incredibly emotional time for everyone. Well, we don't necessarily use our emotions in the most wisest ways. And so it comes out in very hurtful ways as we will attack often the ones we love. We will create petty arguments, or we will want to focus on petty things because really we have unbridled, unfocused, undirected emotions because we've lost that family dynamic that had been in our lives and been kind of our rock up until mom and dad died.
Right. Well, and if the failing to plan has happened, it's leaving families in turmoil. And it's, people have an expectation. An expectation, I think, is always the root of disappointment, right? And so if
Absolutely.
mom and dad have not properly planned how they would like for assets to be, you know, get passed out, or I'm losing the word here, but if the planning hasn't been done, the anger, the hostility enters the room and the space. So I think it's really important that when you're meeting people and you're discussing future plans, that I would imagine you're encouraging these people to have conversations with their families ahead of time to let them know about the division of assets and how what their plans look like.
That's an excellent point, Vanessa. And we do a couple seminars a year that are called Train the Trustee. And the whole point of Train the Trustee is to bring in your children who, I mean, we're not talking about bringing in teenagers, although we have. It's more really bringing in your adult children and sitting them down and explaining to them a couple things. One, reminding them of the harsh reality that someday mom and dad are going to pass away.
Right.
When they pass away, this is the plan that's been put in place by mom and dad using the family values the way they want it written. Third, what are going to be the expectations of the children? Who's going to be in charge? Is it going to be all of them together? Is it going to be one of the siblings in charge? And then what does being in charge mean? And this is probably one of the most important things I like to stress. Being in charge is almost a Christ like approach, meaning you're there to serve, not there to lord over somebody. So when mom and dad put you in charge, they're saying, you know what, Chris, you can now serve your brothers and sisters in the role and capacity that we've blessed you with. In contrast to so often I see somebody lording over them as if dad crowned him king to take care of the estate, which is like the worst thing in the world. So, back to your original question, Vanessa, we train the people, we train the children ahead of time so that when the inevitable comes along, hopefully everybody's prepared for what's next.
Right. And there are no surprises and there's no tension between family members as to what role each person has to assume. Uh,
Correct.
I know that my own parents have been very good about their planning. And many years ago, everything was laid out very clearly. My mom is a super planner and printed me out pages of documents just kind of stating some of her wishes, some of the things she would like me to take care of, who to be in contact with, and obviously this was done with an attorney, but she was presenting it to me many years ago when it seemed to be something that was, I'm like, Mom, what are we doing this for now? You're young, you're healthy. But I think it was essential because as she's getting older, I have her wishes. I know what my role is to be. I know what my brother's role is to be. I know where to find certain funds and who to call to manage those things. And, I'm lucky enough to have both of my parents, but I imagine that when the time does come, what a relief for me, what a relief for the family members, because to have to mourn the loss of a loved one and try to navigate the difficult things is that's very overwhelming.
It
And I'm
is.
sure that you see that. So, do you have, I know you have a lot of success stories working with families ahead of time who are great planners. Alternatively, I'm sure that people come to you in these chaotic moments and this time of total, where they're totally disheveled. So, can you sort of compare, contrast for us what it looks like when families have planned well and what it looks like when the planning hasn't been done?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, everybody has this kind of Hollywood vision of things where, mom and dad die, and then there's this big boardroom, and, the lawyer walks in, and there's the reading of the will, and next thing you know, you're getting a fat check for, your portion of the estate. Yeah, that's Hollywood's portrayal of it.
Yes,
And
I've seen that Hallmark movie.
over and over again.
Yes.
Yes. And so when people fail to plan, the problem is the movie playing in their head is that Hallmark movie. And so when reality sets in that there's been no plan and that the probate courts are going to be involved in the estate for the next 18 months, and it's going to cost $15,000 in attorney's fees and other expenses and costs, and that they won't see their inheritance for almost 2 years, there's a wake up call.
Right.
And of course, there's all kinds of blame shifting, right? Um, they're not going to blame mom and dad, they've passed away. Um, so it must be my sister's fault. It must be, so um, this is where real anxiety builds. Contrast that with the couple that did really well, good planning. And not only did good planning, but educated their children as to the roles and expectations. Now mom and dad dies, and people aren't stressing over things. They just almost start to march in line with the things that have to get done. We need to collect the assets. We need to get them centralized. We need to pay the taxes. We need to reimburse the funeral expenses. And then when all is done, we can disperse the money and everybody's on the same page with the same level of expectation. And while it doesn't necessarily remove people's anger and fear completely, it certainly makes the administrative process go much more smoothly, which is a benefit for everyone.
Right. And it's not leaving things unsaid, and it's not leaving things in the hand of probate courts, which, like you said, costs extra money and time.
That's right.
So if somebody is struggling with the idea of spending the money up front for this type of planning, what advice would you give them?
So, listen, first of all, we know that there's basically three types of clientele in today's society. You have your clientele that is of, we're going to say, marginal means. And that is defined differently around the country, right? It's defined different in Los Angeles and New York than it is in Nebraska. But people of marginal means probably don't necessarily need an estate planning lawyer, but they do need an estate plan. And so I always recommend legal clinics or legal Zoom or trust and wills. While I'm not a big fan of these do-it-yourself kind of planning, when it's done for people who have very little means, and it's done correctly, they follow the instructions appropriately, these are good ways to deal with it. The second segment definitely needs an estate planning lawyer. They're in that middle America. They would consider themselves part of middle class, however you define it. And they may not want to spend big dollars on a fancy estate plan, but they definitely will need something. And their something should come from a lawyer because they're going to need a lawyer to identify exactly what the minimum would be in their instant to get them the right results. And then
Right.
finally, our last class are wealthy, is what we'll call them. And again, that's defined differently throughout the United States. But you know if you've done really well, right? You sit back and you say, I have my millions because it's going to be in the millions. And you need that estate planning lawyer, and you might even need some advanced level of planning. You might want to be putting some asset protection in place for your kids. You're going to want to really consider how that money passes not only to the next generation, but how about the generations that follow that? And you do multi-generational planning. So, you know, I would say that, characterize yourself or categorize yourself in one of those three buckets and then act on it, and you'll be doing your family a favor.
That's such excellent advice, and you're clearly an asset to families. It's amazing the wealth of knowledge that you have to offer. And again, I really love that you share that knowledge on your YouTube channel and on your website just to really help people. We're going to be going to commercial break, but we're going to continue on that note as Chris has really dedicated such a large portion of his life to his faith and to giving back in his community and clearly um, to families in this country. So stay tuned. We'll be right back to continue this conversation. We'll be right back with more stories of resilience and renewal. This is Life Rewritten on Now Media Television.